my great pleasure to welcome Jenny Scott to discuss the Rainbow Rights Toolkit. And Jenny is an out transgender person who's been really active in many LGBTIQ community-based organisations in South Australia. For example, she was twice elected to head the Gay and Lesbian Counselling Service, and in 2017 her name was added to the South Australian Women's Honour Roll as a passionate advocate and activist for the LGBTIQ community. So I just want to say, Jenny, a huge welcome. I know you're a retired archivist as well, and you were a speaker at the launch of the Rainbow Rights Toolkit in Adelaide in 2024. And I should say the toolkit was produced by COTA SA in partnership with the South Australian Government's Office for Ageing Well. And the Rainbow Kit goes to all the rights of rainbow people under 4 themes: overcoming discrimination, housing, health, and planning ahead. And Jenny, I thought we might start with the housing that you're in now, because your experience with your long-term partner, Anthea, of retirement living has been overwhelmingly positive. Of course, some challenges, but very positive. And I think that gives hope to transgender people. So can you tell us a bit about the daily opportunities to engage that you've discovered in retirement living?
Oh, hello, and thank you for talking to me, Judy. Look, we're in an ECH village at Glenelg, and there's I don't know how many residents there, but there's regular opportunities that the residents organise for themselves to socialise, such as we have regular Friday night drinks, and we have a once-a-month sausage sizzle. So that there's just so much support. If, somebody has to go into hospital for a hip replacement, this is the reality of aged care. There's always a group of people who can gather around and say, look, do you need anything? Can we look after anything for you? Those sorts of things. So there's just so many opportunities of mixing with our peers who we all understand where each other are at.
You mentioned ECH, and we should say to our viewers that this is all about South Australia. The Rainbow Rights Toolkit is a South Australian kit, and ECH is a provider of aged care within South Australia, and they have the Rainbow Tick. Tell me about the Rainbow Tick and why that is such good news for us as we age, as rainbow people.
Well, of course, yes, as you say, ECH and Elder Care both have the Rainbow Tick in South Australia. And I believe it's a Victorian-based organisation, and I was very lucky to be involved when Elder Care went for their Rainbow Tick accreditation. So I participated in the process. And what they do is they come in and they measure the organisation against a set of guidelines.
Did it give you and your long-term partner, Anthea, an extra sense of security knowing that ECH had that tick?
Almost definitely. I think the Rainbow Tick certainly stands out as something that not just in their day-to-day or our experience and their experience, but also in the contract we signed. Talks about this contract we signed with ECH, talks about support and acceptance of difference and different cultural and historical values and those sorts of things. So when we sign our contract to go into retirement accommodation, that's a given.
I think you're a great admirer in the Rainbow Rights Toolkit of the quick reference guide. And when you go to that section of the toolkit, it has all these sort of questions. One of them is considering my housing options, including residential aged care. And then you can click on it. And there's all these hyperlinks to information on the live websites of different organisations, including about the Rainbow Tick. But why do you think that quick reference guide is so useful in the kit?
Oh, it's fabulous. Just the quick reference guide in the toolkit, it gives you a link. I can't think of anything that it doesn't give you a link to some sort of either government or non-government organisation or group that can provide you with information. And what I particularly like about the toolkit and the quick reference guide as a way into it is that these days there's such a diversity of information, misinformation, disinformation online. To have an organisation like COTA and the Office for Ageing Well providing a website that gives authentic and
would it be credible
sources of information that so that you're not being led astray down some wrong path. You're receiving information that is current, that's best practice, and is supported by COTA.
You handled, as it were, coming out in the retirement village. How have you handled that?
For Anthea and I, there was our lesbian relationship, and then there was also my transgender status. And we talked about it. Of course, we talked about it. We weren't quite sure when we first moved in. But we soon found out that one of the other residents there, she's got a lesbian daughter. Another couple of the residents there, they have a gay son. And I think probably what really gave the show away for us was we were at one of our regular get-togethers down in the common room, and I was getting something for Anthea, and I just called out, of course you do. I just called out, darling, do you want? And if anybody wasn't paying attention, well, I think everybody's well aware that Anthea and I have been in a long-term relationship. Yes,
and I think one person you spoke to directly about it, and it just didn't appear to be an issue.
Oh, she was asking us about our stories, our life stories, and sharing hers. And of course, in that process, I talked about my transitioning 30 years ago. And it was, yes, not an issue at all.
Look, let's come to this question. I think I've had the opportunity to run a number of community forums where trans people were present. And some of them had great fears, should they ever become frail or have dementia and be in a nursing home or that kind of residential aged care. And if their genitals, if I could just talk very bluntly, didn't match the way they presented to the aged care worker. And they had a dreadful anxiety and fear that they would be not accepted, not have empathy, not be treated kindly. Is that why it's so important that we speak openly about these issues?
I think it is. I think training for carers and care providers, and understanding and being, as you say, being open about our difference. There's lots of trans people who, for one reason or another, weren't able to go, have a reassignment surgery. Sometimes it's a personal thing, sometimes it's a medical thing. So, that carer who comes to shower them might find that their physical body doesn't always match their gender identity. So training is important, and that there will be anxiety, and it's really important. I think this goes back to the rainbow tick. It's really important that you feel secure in your own home, receiving services from somebody who is going to be empathic and supportive of you. More than empathic and supportive, hopefully proud to know you. I think 30 years ago, I felt that the only way things were going to change positively for trans people, trans and gender diverse people, was by positive visibility. We're all human. We all want the same sorts of things. We all want to be cared for and respected in our old age. I don't think trans people are any different to anyone else.
I want to turn to health, if I may, which is another whole section in the Rainbow Rights Toolkit. And they have a section on gender-affirming care where there's a link to a site called Trans Health South Australia, providing information to South Australia's transgender and gender diverse community. They've got links on information for gender inclusive healthcare providers. For example, a link to DIR, National Directory of Inclusive Clinicians and Services.
Well, I wish I had something to do with that website. That is definitely a community creator website by some very good friends of mine over many years. I certainly can't claim anything of it. But what the website is, it's a creation of the trans and gender diverse community. So if they go to a medical provider and get a good, response, and find them supportive, and they're able to be listed on this website as somebody who's inclusive and supportive. And of course, we all know that not everybody is all the time. So, yes, it's a community creation by the community for the community.
There's also links to sort of a queer support group, Q Life. So peer support. Why is peer support important? Because while you're obviously very confident as a trans woman, in the earlier years, when people are transitioning, to use that term, you can go through lots of anxiety and vulnerability, can't you?
Oh, huge anxiety, huge fears. You don't know, really cannot tell what your life is going to be like. If I could go back to Jenny 31 years ago and say that this is what you're going to be doing in 31 years, talking to Jenny Crossan, famous Jenny Crossan, and still advocating for community, but hopefully advocating in a really positive way and saying that I'm so appreciative that I was born in a time and an era where the medical and social transition opportunities were available to me.
Here, Jenny. Here. It's funny, I was asked that exact same question. What would you tell the young Julie about being lesbian from an early age? And I actually started to cry, and I said I'd tell her everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be fabulous.
Everything's going to be fabulous. I'll just mention Thorn Harbour Health. There's information and links on the Rainbow Rights Toolkit as well. So, again, I'm sort of encouraging people to realise the advantage of this kit is all these live hyperlinks.
One thing I did look at recently, not that it's directly affecting me at the moment, but the palliative care websites there, I thought they were fantastic. There's a workbook there about telling your own story. And I just thought that was a magic document. So I'm sure there's still stuff in the toolkit that I haven't seen yet. I know there is, but it's worth exploring and taking the time. Just as you don't have to do it all at once either. I think that's the thing, is you can dive in and out of it, just depending on what's taking your interest at the time.
And that's where that quick reference guide at the front is so good, because they've put it in the form of questions at different issues, but also life stages, as you say, with palliative care. And so you're directed to it in a very, I suppose, down-to-earth and colloquial way rather than an issues kind of way. Look, just before I move to our final topic of advocacy that I know you feel strongly about, and there are some links to advocacy groups, I just talk about passing. What does passing mean in the trans context? And what advantages does it bring to a life if you can pass readily?
I think passing can be a bit of an issue in the trans community, because passing is about privilege. So, a lot of particularly older trans people who, none of us had access to things like puberty blockers in our puberty time. So we've attained many of the physical attributes of our birth sex, I suppose you'd call it. And for some of us, that has left us with more or less traits of our birth sex, not our gender identity. And that can be very difficult for older trans people who maybe do not, and it's a horrible term in many regards, pass as their gender identity. And it leaves them open to discrimination, vilification, and all sorts of harm that is very sad. And they, trans people are trans people, regardless of how they look. If your identity is a certain gender, that should be respected. You have to understand that the how someone looks and how someone feels inside can be quite totally different. And I think we all just need to respect. If somebody says, this is who I am, they know who they are, and we need to respect that in them.
That this respect is the word, isn't it? Like before kindness was the word. And this issue of passing, it's not just about psychological safety. It can be about physical safety. I think there's still evidence, I'm sad to say, that trans people experience more public violence than other members of the rainbow world, that you can be beaten up just because people can be confronted if they discern that or discover that you're different.
It's something that many trans people confront on a daily basis, and the absolute strength that it takes for many trans people to go out and present to the world their real selves, because this is their real selves, in spite of the discrimination, the fear of violence, the fear of vilification. That's a very strong individual.
Well, look, I just want to say, Jenny, thank you so much for sharing so openly and being both a self-advocate and an advocate for your trans community peers. And I also want to thank our audience for watching this video and taking an interest in the Rainbow Rights Toolkit. And you can find the toolkit, so you can have a look for yourself on the COTA SA website, or you can simply Google Rainbow Rights Toolkit SA. And just remember, we've been discussing organisations which are almost exclusively in South Australia. There were one or two references to national organisations as well. And I'd ask you to please share this video to raise awareness about the rights of older rainbow people. Share it within the rainbow community, but also with anyone that you know are working in that multitude of services for ageing Australians that are about at the time. So my name is Julie McCrossett. It's been a pleasure to be with you. See you next time, and thank you, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
This interview was recorded on the land of the Kaurna people.